Welcome to What She Does, the podcast that takes you inside the working lives of everyday women shaping the world around us. I'm Leanne Starr.
And I'm Annie Sinzinger. And each week, we sit down with someone who shows us not just what she does, but how and why she does it. Plus, find out if you fit the same mold to grab the same type of gig. Let's discover
What She Does, starting now.
Every book you've ever picked up has an author's name on the cover. But sometimes the person who actually wrote it is someone you'll never know. In this episode, we're going behind the pages with a New York Times and Wall Street Journal best-selling ghostwriter who has written or co-written more than 85 books for CEOs, founders, and business leaders, holds a doctorate focused on the field, and founded the leading professional organization built exclusively for ghostwriters.
Our guest today is Dr. Marcia Turner, and she's a ghostwriter. I am really excited to talk to you. So, can you tell me how you became a ghostwriter?
Sure. Well, Leanne, I didn't really know that ghostwriters were around until, not too long ago. I assumed that whoever's name was on a book was who wrote it, right? Like
Yeah.
normal assumption. I got into ghostwriting sort of by happenstance, which it turns out is how most ghostwriters get into the business. I was doing freelance writing and authoring my own books. And I sort of developed a reputation as someone who could work quickly, did strong work, didn't really need all that much direction. And I think it was around 15-ish years ago, maybe a little bit longer, my agent had met with a publisher. And the publisher said, we need somebody who can come in and help write this book, work alongside this expert and help them to say what they want to say, which apparently they were having trouble with, or they didn't have the time. And so I jumped in, and over the course of 6 or 8 weeks, I think we wrote this book. There was an outline that had been approved by the publisher, and the expert knew what he wanted to say. He just could not find the time to sit down and type or put pen to paper or whatever. And so I just started asking all the questions that a reader would ask about, like, well, tell me about this. And why do you say that? And why did you do that? What were you thinking? What were you feeling? And that's just sort of how we brought the book to life. And it was so much fun that when I was done, I told my agent, like, I don't know what that was, but I want more of those projects. And she said, Marcia, that's ghostwriting. Like, oh, okay, bring me all the ghostwriting. And
Wow.
it was a good time for me to be discovering that, because right around 2010-ish, there were some really big changes happening in the publishing space that probably most people weren't aware of. Forever, if you wanted to publish a book, you had to go through a traditional publisher, one of the big names that we've all heard of, Random House, Simon & Schuster, Penguin, and they were sort of the gatekeepers. And if they decided that they didn't want to publish a book, not because it was bad necessarily, but maybe they had 5 other books on the topic. If they said no, then you were out of luck. Well, right around 2005, 2010, all these new publishing technologies and printing technologies came to be. That's when we started talking about self-publishing. And so suddenly, right around that same time, all these people wanted to publish books, because now sort of the floodgates were open. There was nobody saying, no, you can't publish a book. And so it was a really good time for me to get started, because there was so much more demand. So now that there are all these new hybrid presses and independent presses and online platforms that walk you through the step of publishing your book, it was easy. That part was taken care of. And so if you decided that you want to publish a book, but you didn't really know the process, or you didn't have the time, or you didn't really you didn't want to take the time to write it, but you had all these great ideas, now you could find this ghostwriter who's sort of a middleman to help you get to that point of being able to publish a book. So suddenly there was all these people who couldn't previously get a contract or didn't want to go through the traditional channels because it's really slow. Suddenly, they were looking for somebody like me.
And so were you still going through your agent or?
My agent brought me some projects, and then traditional publishers that I had been working with who knew me would come to me directly and say, "Hey, we have this person, they'd like some help. Can you two make a book?" Sure. And then as these other presses started emerging and ghostwriting agencies, there are now a couple of big ghostwriting agencies, they had work as well, because so they were the middleman, another middleman. So new projects were coming from many, many different sources, and that's still the case right now. Is that there are many possible sources of ghostwriting work.
So, what kind of niche are you in? Because I think of ghostwriting as just like the trashy. Well, I don't want to say trashy, but it's
Like celebrity books.
yeah, celebrity books, and they'll be like, true awful thing that happened to me books.
Yeah, I only write nonfiction. I prefer business books. I like
Okay.
entrepreneurial stories. I like corporate histories. I'll do some personal development and self-help books because I think those are interesting, but I don't do memoir. Some ghostwriters are really good at telling traumatic stories. Like, I,
Yes.
I don't want to go there. I don't write fiction. Some people can do both. My brain just is much more of a I like finding new ways to explain things, but I can't figure out plots and character development, and like that's a skill. And I know it's a skill I don't have.
Marcia, walk us through your background. Psych degree, MBA, working for Kodak. How did that all lead here?
So many writers grow up as children knowing they want to be writers. They want to be novelists. That's
Yeah.
all they want to do. And they go through school and through college knowing they want to be a writer. My mother was a freelance writer, and I saw how hard it was. And so I wasn't sure that I wanted to go that route. My father was an artist and he wanted me to be an artist. And so for a while, I kind of thought about that. I went to a liberal arts college because I didn't really know what I wanted to be. I took one of those career assessments in high school and it said I should be a priest, a policewoman, or a psychologist. And of those three, yeah, I thought, well, okay, I'll get a psych degree because, like that, I could see that. And so I did. I got a psychology sociology degree, but during college, in order to pay for my expenses, I got part-time jobs, and I was working a lot of hours, like full-time hours.
Right.
And I became so fascinated with why some of the businesses that I worked for did well, or some of the decisions that management was making. And so when I graduated, I thought, I either want to go to law school or business school. Ended up thinking business school was probably a better way to go, and I went straight into the Michigan MBA program right from college, which was unusual. And it was there that I realized that I had figured out this writing thing. I had never thought of myself as a strong writer, probably because I was in classes with people who were amazing. And so, I got a B plus and thought, I'm never going to be anything. But during college, we had the choice to either take a final or write a paper, and I always wrote the paper. So in 3.5 years, I wrote a ton of papers and figured it out. But I didn't realize that until I got to the MBA program and I started getting A's super easily. And I thought, oh, wow. Hey, I figured it out. I went through the MBA program thinking about marketing. I was really interested. I realized, oh, what I'm fascinated by is marketing decisions. I left the MBA program with my MBA, went to Kodak, worked in corporate America in marketing communications, and quickly realized that the sooner you're promoted, the farther away you get from the actual work being done. So where I started out writing press releases, I helped my boss write a chapter of a book. But as I got promoted, I wasn't doing any of that. I was just managing people. And so layoffs started coming around, and I was very happy to be laid off. Um,
Wow.
they gave me money. I immediately started a business. And then, of course, my boss came back and said, "Hey, Marshall, we found a spot for you. You can be product manager." And I was like, don't. If they offered it to me, I would have lost all the severance package. I said, don't offer it to me. Don't. No, no, no. And so I went on my way. I started doing marketing communications, business planning, and writing, and realized I really just like the writing. And so that's how I got into writing books first and then articles. And through the years, in the back of my mind, I thought I'd really like to have a doctorate. It just was a personal goal. My career doesn't demand it. My MBA has been useful because I write in the business space. I know what kinds of questions to ask or which ones might be relevant. So I went and got my doctorate during COVID and took the opportunity to brush up on my research skills. And my dissertation is on the field of book ghostwriting. It's one of two that are out there, the other by some professors at BU and Yale. And so that was really interesting. So I took the opportunity to learn more about how do people get into ghostwriting and how and why do clients hire ghostwriters. So
Oh, wow.
I was wondering some of the things that you do. So you're sort of a coach a little bit. You're a bit of a sounding board, and you would do the writing on behalf of the person's story. How do you find their voice? How do you wind up mimicking their voice so that it sounds like them?
that's a really good question, and that is really the skill that differentiates an author from a ghostwriter. And so some people think, well, I've written my own book, therefore I can become a ghostwriter. And some can, some can't, because you need to be able to sort of get in the head of your client and write like they are thinking, speaking, writing. And how I do it is I try to get as much background information up front from them. So I'll read past, if they've written any books, I'll read their books. I'll read newsletter articles, blog posts, articles. I'll watch videos of them if they've given any speeches, done a TED talk, anything like that to listen to the words that they use, how they structure sentences. Generally, you can find that someone has a phrase that they love or a word that they rely heavily on. Some people ask a question and then they answer it themselves. Like that's sort of a pattern that you look for. And so I try and figure that out early on in the process, just so as I'm writing drafts, it sounds a little bit more like them. But I don't actually work on polishing the manuscript in their voice until we get to the editing stage. Because early on, I'm really just trying to get the facts on the page. And I do want to make it sound like them, but that's more of an editing task to go back through and think, okay, how would this person say that? They wouldn't say it that way. And they're part of the process there too. And they'll tell me, yeah, Marsha, I wouldn't say it that way. I'd say it this way.
Mm.
We'll change that. But I try and start it in their voice just to make it faster and easier in editing.
So, being a ghostwriter, is there like a moment? Because I think this would be interesting just being able to meet with people and ask them ask them the questions that you wanna ask them. Has there been a best moment?
Yeah, I don't know that there's one, but Leanne, you hit on the exact reason why I love being a ghostwriter. Because people come to me with these fabulous ideas or really interesting backgrounds. And they say,
Mhm.
Marcia, can you help me write a book? And I'm thinking to myself, wow, you want to pay me to learn all I can about this fascinating subject. Like, isn't that a great career? Um,
Right.
there have been several times when I've been working with a client and through my questions, they learn something new or have a new perspective on their ideas. So we'll be talking and I'll say, well, why did you do that and not this other thing? Or were you aware that this was going on? And you can just see the light bulb going, oh, wow. I hadn't ever thought of that. And that's so fulfilling for me because I feel like, oh, I'm really adding value. I'm not just helping to communicate what you wanted to say, but I'm making the book even richer and better for the reader. So, I mean, I've had those usually about at least once during a project. So there have been, that's why I can't think of one in particular, but I just remember that light bulb like, oh, wow, yeah. So that's fun.
That sounds really great. And then has there been like a moment that has been the hardest or that we would not know being newbies to ghostwriting?
Yeah, behind the scenes, the hard conversations or discussions are when the the author client has something that they want to do and they're really excited about it.
Okay.
And as a ghostwriter, it's not going to work. and you have to tell them this
Oh,
nicely. Like, that's hard. It's a hard conversation to have. Say, "Wow, well, I'm really," maybe it's a story that they wanna tell or some experience they had that they think is super relevant and that I know as a ghostwriter, when it's on the page and the reader's going through the book, they're gonna think, like, "What does this have to do with anything?" And so I have to counsel them like, "Well, it's your book," and I say this to all my clients, "It's totally your book, and you are the decider. Like, you get to determine what's in your book and what's not. However, based on other books that I've written and what's currently selling and the feedback that I'm hearing from agents and publishers, I don't really think you want to do this. Like, we
mm,
can, but here's why you should reconsider it." And so those are hard because I don't like potentially hurting someone's feelings if they're interpreting it that, like, it's not a good idea. It may be a good idea, but just not for that book.
okay.
So
So
those are hard.
yeah, you seem to be so nice about it. I would get bad news from you.
Well, I tried, but just imagine you have, you're writing your memoir, and I don't actually do memoir, but I'm just trying to think of a similar situation. And you had this story that was like so pivotal you to you. It really helped you determine the path of your life to date. And you think this is critical and I have to tell everybody. But for some reason there's something about it that is just going to take us off on a tangent.
Mm,
And
okay.
and so I have to say, well, let's think of another way to tell that story, or let's come up with a similar situation. And like, if you insist on telling it, then I'm going to do the best job. But I'm going to be like grimacing as I do it, like, I don't think you want to say that, but okay.
My God.
Just something, because my goal is to make you look as fabulous as you are. Like, I work with brilliant people, nice people, kind people. I want to make them look good. And if ever they want to consider something that's not going to put them in the best light, that's where I sort of feel bad the whole way through if they're not listening to me. And I can't do anything about it because it's their book.
Like, as a ghostwriter, you're not on the title at all, or are you?
Am typically not, but because it's not really important to me. I've had clients sometimes want to put me on the cover, and I don't necessarily want my name on the cover. Interestingly, in the United Kingdom now, the Society of Authors is pushing legislation through or trying to get legislation through that requires that ghostwriters' names appear on the cover because they don't think it's um, tr- transparent enough. They think that ghostwriters should get credit. In the US, the market is a little bit different, and sometimes it's nice to get credit. Like, if you work on a book and it becomes a bestseller, darn it, you want your name on the cover, but you make that decision during the contract stage way, early in the process. And some authors want to make sure that everybody knows it's their information, it's their intellectual property, and they don't want any other name on the cover. Some authors want to make sure the ghostwriter gets credit. Like, I think it was Lisa Rinna a couple weeks ago who was talking about her memoir, and she spoke very openly that, of course, she had a ghostwriter. Like, she doesn't know anything about the publishing process. And
Okay.
I'm 99% sure that the ghostwriter had their name on the cover, and it's
Wow.
usually with somebody's name. Like, if you saw a book with Marcia Layton Turner, that means I helped them write it. If you see an "and," it means the other person is a co-author and they're providing like an equal amount of input.
Like, as you said, sometimes you don't wanna be on the cover at all. Do you care if you're an "and" or a "with"?
Well, an "and" would probably give me too much credit. Like, if I'm really just helping an author figure out how to say what they wanna say, it's all up in their head and based on their experiences. I think saying that I was a co-author is going a little too far because I'm just helping to communicate it. I'm really not doing more than that. A "with" is nice. Some ghostwriters in their contract request that they get an acknowledgement, so in
Mm,
the acknowledgement section, if you go through and you read it and you see someone who's named who as maybe the editor or collaborator is another word. I call myself a writing partner. because that's what
Okay.
I'm there to do, is to partner with them to get the book out. So there'll be other terms that are used, but generally you can see a ghostwriter's presence in the acknowledgments.
So I can go through all my books and I can
Yeah, you
find out
could. Yeah. And see,
if
like,
you're
is there
ghosted.
somebody in here who's not a friend, not family, not a mentor, like
Who is their agent? Yeah, find out who it is.
agents? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, usually many people who are involved in the book are mentioned somewhere in there.
Oh, I love this. So you are Dr. Marcia Turner. What is your doctorate called? It's Doctorate of Ghostwriting?
It's called an in-depth exploration of the field of book ghostwriting. You can
That's
find it on ProQuest for anybody who wants
wow.
to read it.
Okay. I'm kind of interested.
And the interesting there were a number of interesting things that came out of it, but from the client side, what I heard several times was that, ghostwriters aren't charging enough and that they frequently hire the first ghostwriter that they speak with, which was shocking to me. Because as ghostwriters, we're always worried about how we position ourselves and making sure that, uh, financial expectations are met. Yeah, no.
Because who is usually paying the ghostwriter? Is it the publishing company?
No, it's the individual, it's the author.
Oh, oh,
Yeah. Now, if authors are writing a book to enhance the value of their company or as a marketing tool, then the company can pay for it or may pay for it. But the publisher is typically not paying for it, no.
so but they're still not charging enough?
That's what clients were saying.
Oh, okay.
And yet,
What
on the ghostwriter side, they're saying, "Oh, I don't know if I can raise my rates. I'm afraid how it's going to impact demand." We can't say that necessarily all clients are going to say ghostwriters are too cheap. I've had plenty say that I am too expensive. But it was an interesting takeaway that there's a subset of people who think ghostwriters aren't given enough kind of credit.
okay, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good that there's a subset. Yeah,
If somebody wanted to hire a ghostwriter, what are some of the red flags they should be looking out for?
and green flags.
Yeah, a really good question. And I will not go off onto a tangent about scam ghostwriting sites, but believe me, they are out there. When you're thinking about hiring a ghostwriter, the most important thing, oddly enough, is chemistry, is how you relate to the person as an author, how you relate to the person that you're speaking with. I always recommend that authors talk to like 3 to 5 ghostwriters who seem to have a background that would be good for their book. But y they're gonna be working together for months, so you really have to make sure that you like this person and that you have confidence that they can do the job that you're asking them to do. And so generally, you wanna hear about past projects. Your question about voice, I think that's a good one. How are you going to figure out my voice? What's your process like? People should be able to describe these really easily. Like, if you're a ghostwriter and you don't have a process, or you flip it around and say, "Well, however you wanna work." Mm-mm, no, that's a red flag. You need somebody who's done this a number of times because your ghostwriter, Annie, as you said, they're part coach, they're part therapist, but they're part publishing consultant too, and they need to have been doing this for a while to make sure that you're getting good advice. What other red flags? They need to be curious. So they should be asking interesting questions even on that first call about the book. Green flags, I guess, would be if your energy level matches. If you're and I've had this a few times. I've had potential clients who were just really, really quiet and subdued. And I thought, I don't know if I can match that energy level. Not that I'm really high energy, but by the same token, if you have an author who's like super high energy and, I'm picturing like Tony Robbins and like, I don't know that I'm ever going to get to that point.
Yeah.
So I need clients energy wise that are in the middle, and they should be looking for ghostwriters that match them as well. I mean, if you're looking for your ghostwriter through a reputable source, like the Association of Ghostwriters, which I founded and run. So I know that all the people who are in there are actual humans and they're good. You can go to ghostwriting agencies like Gotham Ghostwriters, Kevin Anderson and Associates. I don't know that Authors Guild has a ghostwriter directory, but the Association or American Society of Journalists and Authors, ASJ, has a group of ghostwriters. So if you go through any of those organizations, you are less likely to come across a scammer. Um,
Oh,
and just for a couple of tips, if a ghostwriter starts asking you or offering a discount right off the bat, hey, if you want to work together and your budget is 50,000, I'll do it for five. Mm-mm.
whoa,
That's probably not somebody who's actually going to deliver
legitimate.
what you're expecting to get. You need to know where they are in the world. Not that it really matters, but they should have an address that you can find somewhere to verify that they are a human writer. Um, yeah, yeah,
I guess AI is, sort of reaching into the ghostwriting space.
yeah. It definitely is. In in the last 3 years, I'd say it's had a massive impact. I think on writing in general. We've seen magazines and newspapers shut down. We've seen publications attempt to use AI for all of their writing, and then like Sports Illustrated, and then suddenly decide, ooh, maybe that wasn't so great. That's what's also happening in the publishing and ghostwriting space is that authors are thinking, I've had this book I've really wanted to write, and hey, maybe I'll use AI to do it. In 15 minutes, I can have my 60,000 word book right in front of me without much,
Effort.
effort. And I think that's what happened early, like 2023, 2024, even into 2025. People were experimenting and thinking
Mhm.
this is going to be a cheap and easy way to get a book. And they are now recognizing all of the problems with that. Part of it is that the writing isn't as good. It's just
Yes.
not. It may get to the point where it can match a human voice, but right now it can't. It's kind of bland. There's a problem with plagiarism. There's the
Yes.
big Anthropic case that you may have heard about.
Oh, yeah.
Anthropic used published books with copyright to train the AI. So all of that material is now at the AI platform's disposal, and they'll pull that in when they're writing your book. So you're at risk of being sued for plagiarism down the road, even though you didn't necessarily know that ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever you're using, that they pulled from other books, but it's very likely they did. So you could get sued. You can't get copyright protection. Copyright Office will not give you copyright protection for anything that is
Yes.
AI generated, and publishers don't want it, as we just saw with Shy Girl a couple weeks ago. Hachette was going to publish Shy Girl, and then somebody ran it through an AI detector and said, "Oh, this was partially AI generated." Book got taken out.
Yeah, which was great. The book that I wrote was part of the Anthropic lawsuit, so yay,
You're getting
I
some
Yay for
money.
get
you.
money for
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
but I'm not really thrilled that it
No.
was used as a teaching guide. But
The Anthropic settlement, so the books that were included, the authors get $3,000 each, which that's when you were saying, "Yay." I was like, "Yeah."
I'm not like, "Yay, yay, yay," but yeah,
Right. I mean,
It's
should it
still
have been 10?
something.
it's something.
It's something.
It's something. It's not what I was paid for the book, but okay.
Right. At
Yeah.
least there's an acknowledgement that it was stolen
Yeah,
material,
it was stolen.
but
Yeah.
authors need to just be very careful, and I believe that there is this sort of reckoning happening where people are realizing, "Oh, maybe it's not the quick and easy fix that I thought it was," because across the board, we're seeing lots of interest in ghostwriters. Like demand has really skyrocketed
Well, that's
across
good.
all of the hybrid publishers, the ghostwriting agencies. There's a lot of inquiries.
That is that's heartwarming, uh, especially since AI has been so pervasive in, like, every other space.
But I do think it's going to continue to have an impact. I think what's going to happen is that the high end work, like the books where the people have the money, and it's really important that they get a top quality book written. They're going to continue to pay for human writers because they know it's better. I think the content writing and maybe blog posts, less expensive things, I think that's going to go to AI. So I think there is some writing that's going to get wiped out, but not at the higher end. And we're starting to see organizations giving certifications, human writer certifications, um, just so authors can be assured, oh, okay, no AI was used there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that's great. But
As you keep up to date with kind of what's happening in technology, what do you recommend in terms of books, podcasts, other resources that keep ghostwriters sharp?
I mean, there's just so much out there. What I recommend to ghostwriters who are trying to build their business or expand is figure out your specialty. What's your niche? Who do you want to be serving? And then go where they are and pay attention to what they're paying attention to. So if they are, I frequently use accountants as an example. I'm not sure why, but if that's the market that you serve, then be in all the accounting groups, join the professional associations, and just become familiar with the issues that are relevant to them and learn more so you can be a true partner to them when you're writing. You'll know what questions to ask because you've been in that space, and it differentiates you. The people who are trying to write about everything, uh, although I am curious and I'd like to write about a lot of things too, it doesn't really inspire confidence among clients. If they're looking at three ghostwriters, one that has been writing the type of book that they want to write, has read all of them, and then you've got two other people who do everything from romance to medical to, you know, pop culture. Like, I think you're going to go with the one who knows your industry. That could be podcasts, it could be Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, professional associations. Just go where your client is and know the content.
and I guess that's probably pretty similar to the advice you would give to newbies, to new people who want to be ghostwriters?
Yes and no. I think the challenge for newbies, which has always been the case, is getting that first project. And I'm
Mm,
talking specifically about book ghostwriting. Book ghostwriting is different than writing blog posts or speeches or short form work. I think that's easier to find because there's so much of it. But when you're a newbie ghostwriter, if you want to get into book ghostwriting, you have to demonstrate that you can write a book length work. And not everybody can. You could be a great magazine article writer and know how to write 1,000 to 2,000 words, in 5 minutes. But writing a book takes more strategy, more organizing, just going more
structure.
in depth. And if you don't already have that, then I always recommend looking for clients who are willing to take a chance on you so that you can just get over that big barrier to entry to show, yes, I've written a book. And sometimes I recommend going back to people that you've done blog posts for and articles for because they already know that you understand them and could do the writing. And now maybe you give them a discounted rate in order to work on a book together since you haven't done it before. So that's generally my advice to them.
Ah, okay.
Would you take the same path if you're talking to your younger self?
I think the world is different today, Annie. So today, if I were getting started, I do think that having written a book was a big help. So there was never a question of whether I could write a book because I already had, and I just kept adding to the number of books that I've written. And that's probably why now I don't really care if my name is on the cover or not. I'm coming up on 85, but I would probably just start working on a book, whether it's one with my name on it or somebody else's name on it. Better to have their name on it, and get to know the industry, figure out where the work is coming from, find all the potential sources of work, publishers, agencies, organizations, get on directories, join groups, and make sure that your name is out there. And then start blogging so that you get some traffic to your own website that hopefully will result in some inquiries and some work too. But I'd probably go the same route, starting with books.
Ah, That's great. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
My
Thank you so
pleasure.
much,
Thank you for having
Marcia.
me.
Well, what I thought was interesting about ghostwriters, and I think she probably makes a lot more money than the average ghostwriters, they do not make a lot of money.
Probably not at the beginning. I think you have to establish yourself. I mean, clearly, Marcia, what's impressive about her is she's had over 85 books done, whether
Yeah.
that's she wrote them or she ghost wrote them. And that's seriously impressive.
Yeah.
I I didn't really have a clear understanding of ghostwriting. I think my misconception about ghostwriting was clarified with her interview, but it's sort of like I thought it was just people writing celebrity books. I mean, I really did. I mean, I wouldn't have known that you could ghostwrite almost anything now.
Business books, I think, is a big key, and which
Bus
she does.
Yes, and
Is
that's
a
her specialty,
lot.
and she also talked about that, about the idea that being in a niche is really important because you have to separate yourself from the others that you're competing with, when you're ghostwriting, even though there aren't a it's not like there are thousands and thousands of ghostwriters. It's a small community, but it's something you can still get into. I mean, that's sort of impressive. Like, if you are a good writer, um,
Also
you
a fast writer, I think is
yes.
pivotal.
Yeah, true. You
Yeah,
probably need to be very
jam it out.
organized, but if you can if you have the ability to not only write, but
Mhm.
I think really be able to mimic the person's voice, like understand how that person communicates and then be able to translate it in their voice, then you could be a really good ghostwriter
Yeah.
for somebody. But it's also interesting that we talked about business books, but it's also tech and AI, healthcare and wellness. The other things I found were like executive branding and finance.
Yeah, and I can see where executive branding, people are voracious for executive speak, and to find out what do I have to do to become an executive?
That's true.
Yeah, that is a big market.
What I did find interesting were the topics that are probably poised to be really important in 2027. And that included things like climate and sustainability storytelling,
Good.
also on DEI leadership. And I know that's not like a really, somehow in this administration, it's not a happy topic, but it's still a needed topic. And then technical writers for engineering and cybersecurity.
Mm,
So if you can write about those things, technical writing is really important for the future.
that's pretty good.
And then I read that it's going to increase or expected to increase in like the next several years to like $15 billion. Where are these people getting this money?
And their paychecks.
I guess so. But anyway, I think the most important thing, though, if somebody is deciding that they want to become a ghostwriter, is to really think about not only what niche you want to be in, or what you best fit to, but your personality. I think you
Mhm.
need to really connect with whomever it is that you're going to
Yep.
be
Yeah.
working with, because otherwise, that I think Marcia said at 4 to 12 months that you're working on that project with
Uh-huh.
them, that could wind up being
That would be so
really
painful if it's someone you
yes,
don't click with.
yes. So, something to think about as you ponder the idea of becoming a ghostwriter. Thanks for joining us today. That's what she does, and maybe what you could do too. If you like what you heard, make sure you follow What She Does wherever you get your podcast.